Number 10 spot, we have the Ahwahnee Hotel. The Ahwahnee Hotel, located in Yosemite National Park, California, is a beautiful and historic hotel with a long reputation for being haunted. Yeah, you can't have anything in Yosemite apparently. Built in the early 1900s, the hotel has a rich history and has played host to many famous guests over the years. However, it is also rumored to be the home to a number of ghosts and other supernatural phenomena. One of the most well-known ghosts at the Ahwahnee Hotel is said to be a former caretaker who took his own life in one of the rooms. Many people have reported seeing strange lights as well and hearing strange noises all throughout the hotel. Some have even claimed to see the ghost of the caretaker himself. In addition to the ghost of the caretaker, some people have reported seeing the ghost of a young girl who is said to haunt the hotel's dining room. They say she likes to play around, and at some times she likes to approach visitors as if she is a real person. At a number 9 spot with the RMS Queen Mary. The RMS Queen Mary is a retired ocean liner that is now a hotel and a museum in Long Beach, California. Built in the 1930s, the ship was once a luxurious and popular mode of transportation for travelers crossing the Atlantic Ocean. However, it is now known for its reputation as a haunted location on the seas. Many people have reported strange and supernatural things coming aboard the RMS Queen Mary, including the ghosts of former passengers and crew members who passed away on the very ship. One of the ghosts that can be sighted inside of this ocean liner is that of a woman in a white dress who is said to haunt the first-class swimming pool. And also there's the ghost of a former crew member who is said to haunt the engine room as well because he passed away there. In addition to these ghostly sightings, many people have reported hearing strange noises and feeling a presence on the very ship. Some have even claimed to have been touched or grabbed by unseen hands. Overall, the RMS Queen Mary is a fascinating and mysterious place to go. With a rich history and a reputation for being haunted, whether or not you believe in ghosts, a visit here is sure to be unique and a memorable experience. At our number 8 spot with the Langham Hotel. The Langham Hotel in London, England is a luxurious hotel with a big reputation for being haunted. Built in the 1800s, the hotel has played host to many famous guests over the years, including royalty, politicians, and even celebrities. Visitors who come here claim to see the spirit of a former nobleman who was murdered in one of the hotel's rooms, known as the Brown Lady. The ghost is said to haunt the hotel's corridors and often seen by ghosts and other staff members. Some people have reported seeing her floating down the corridor as well, levitating off of the ground. Others have reported hearing strange noises coming from the room where she was killed. However, that just happens to be on the second floor and no one really knows what room it's in. In addition to the ghost of the Brown Lady, there are also reports of other supernatural activity inside of this hotel. Some have said the ghost of a former servant is said to have haunted the basement of this place, and others have claimed to hear the sounds of a ghostly party coming from one of these empty rooms. At a number 7 spot, we have the Myrtles Plantation. The Myrtles Plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana is a historic plantation house that is rumored to be haunted by the ghosts of former slaves who were executed on the property. Built in the late 1700s, the plantation has a long and dark history, including several instances of murder and violence. One of the most well-known ghosts at the Myrtles Plantation is said to be that of a former slave named Chloe. Chloe was executed by her fellow slaves after she was caught eavesdropping on their conversations. She is said to haunt the plantation house, where she can often be seen walking through the rooms and corridors. Some people have reported seeing her ghost, while others have reported hearing her strange noises and feeling a presence inside of the home. Others have also said that she has grabbed them out of the rooms and even into closets where they are being forced inside of them. Adding on to the tragedy of the home, the plantation's original owner, Clark Woodruff, was poisoned by his wife, who was later acquitted of the crime. Then another former owner, Judge Hardy, was shot and murdered on the property. These events, along with many of the other tragic stories associated with the plantation, are said to contribute to its reputation as a haunted location. No wonder. Number 6, the Ballygally Castle Hotel. The Ballygally Castle Hotel in Northern Ireland is a historic hotel that is said to be haunted by the ghost of Lady Isabella Shaw. Lady Shaw was the wife of James Shaw, the original owner of the castle. She was known for her beauty and her love of fine clothing and jewelry. The story goes that one day, Lady Shaw became so obsessed with a particular necklace that she just refused to take it off. Even when she was climbing the castle's tower, as she reached the top, she lost her footing and fell to her death, still wearing the necklace. Since then, Lady Shaw's ghost is said to haunt the castle, appearing to guests and staff members. Some have reported seeing her ghostly figure walking the castle's halls, while others have reported feeling her presence in the rooms during the night. Many guests at the Ballygally Castle Hotel have reported strange occurrences as well, such as doors opening and closing on their own, ghostly voices, and objects moving around the room. Some even claim to see Lady Shaw's ghost stand in the rooms at the end of their bed just staring at them, still wearing the same necklace she was obsessed with in life. In the hump of our list, we have the Plaza Hotel. The Plaza Hotel in New York City is a luxury hotel built in 1907, and over the years, more and more creepy things come out of this place. The hotel is said to be haunted by the ghosts of former guests and employees, including A-list celebrities such as Marilyn Monroe and even Theodore Roosevelt himself. One of the most famous ghost stories associated with this hotel is the tale of a ghost of a young girl who is sent to haunt the hotel's elevators. According to the legend, the girl was traveling with her family when they were involved in a car accident on their way to the hotel. She was the only survivor and she passed away with her injuries in one of the hotel's elevators. Since then, guests and employees at the Plaza Hotel have reported seeing the ghost of this young girl inside of the elevators. Some have reported feeling her presence in the rooms at night as well, with some seeing her standing in the dark corners of the rooms. Another ghost that is rumored at this hotel is of a man who is said to roam the hotel's lobby during the night, and also a woman who is said to haunt the hotel's bar. If you like luxury mixed with a little bit of scary, this hotel might be perfect for you. At a number 4 spot, we have Hotel Morgan. Established in 1925 in Morgantown, West Virginia, is Hotel Morgan. And this hotel just screams luxury with its beautiful rooms, modern gym, and expansive dining areas. Despite its undeniable beauty, Hotel Morgan is claimed by many to be very haunted as well. The room that is said to be the most haunted in the hotel is room 314. It is believed that a young girl drowned in the bathtub here in the early days of the hotel, and after that, every guest of room 314 has reported some strange occurrence during their overnight stay. Notorious guests of the hotel include Eleanor Roosevelt and Harriet S. Truman, and during both their stays, they would recall things they just couldn't explain. At number 3 spot, with the Diplomat Hotel. The Diplomat Hotel is one of the go-to places for ghost hunters from different parts of the world. In fact, this hotel was featured in documentaries from different countries because of its dark history. The Diplomat Hotel is believed to be built during the early 1900s, and this was built to become a vacation home for the Spaniards, priests, and nuns. This hotel was home to many happy and beautiful memories, but all of these changed during World War II. According to the stories, when the Japanese came, they gathered all the people in the hotel, separated them into different rooms, and proceeded to kill all of them. The people in the hotel were shot to death, beheaded, and even stabbed. The worst part is at the center of the hotel, where the fountain is located in the same place where the children were gathered and murdered. After World War II, the vacation house was converted into a hotel, but another tragic incident occurred. A fire started in the hotel, and the firefighters took a long time to arrive because it was far from civilization back then. Many guests who were staying there passed away, which is another reason for the hotel to be haunted. The people working and visiting the hotel have experienced many scary encounters. There are also times that the ghosts are photographed and recorded, and tourists have shared their experiences seeing a nun, priest, and child while staying at this place. At number 10 spot, we have the Haunted Igloo Hotel. Located in Cantwell, Alaska, is one of the most unique hotels you'll ever see. However, can we call it a hotel if it's never officially been opened up to people? I guess not. Well, sometime in the 1970s, a man named Leon Smith began the construction of this building. His original plan was to make it a never-before-seen hotel, but over the years, it never managed to open due to various code violations. For example, they had undersized windows, which didn't even meet the requirement of the state. And in the end, the building was too big to demolish, so it just stood there for the next 4 decades. Now, apart from this hotel looking pretty eerie, what makes it so scary? Well, because this is an area notorious for grizzly bear attacks, and many have been reported in the area surrounding the hotel. But what makes many stray far, far away is that some have said they saw a woman in white who haunts the ruins. She can be seen looking out of the windows and sometimes by the entrance. Number 2, the Weinkauf Hotel. After its completion in 1912, the Weinkauf Hotel was renowned as being a fireproof building due to its steel construction. It was located in the heart of downtown Atlanta. It was grand, it was modern, but for some reason, the hotel only featured one stairway, which turned out to be a huge fatal mistake. Because on December 7, 1946, a fire engulfed the hotel, which was also the deadliest hotel fire in US history, which killed a total of 119 people. The hotel started on the 3rd floor, which only meant that everyone from the 3rd floor to the 15th floor had no way of escaping the building because of the one staircase. While some managed to jump out of the windows into nets where firemen were holding, the majority of people would be leaping to their death. The hotel has since been rebuilt, but much of the charred past remains inside of the building. Not physically, but mentally. Guests and workers report voices and footsteps coming from empty rooms, especially ones above the 3rd floor, with the right reason. Then on some nights, guests can hear screams inside of the hallways, also above the 3rd floor. All this paranormal activity above the 3rd floor only gives more reason to believe this building is haunted by the 119 people who passed away there. At a number 1 spot, we have the Clown Motel. If you have a fear for clowns, this motel is probably the last place you want to sleep at. This hotel has an obvious theme for clowns, and this was because the father of the owner was a clown collector and ended up being buried at the old Tonopah Cemetery right beside of the hotel. Motel and cemetery, probably not the most appealing combination. Not only does each and every single room have all types of clown decorations, but past workers and owners have claimed it was haunted since the time it was built. They would recall hearing footsteps and voices coming from unoccupied rooms, and even on their website, they would have different rooms and their spiritual encounters in each and every single one of them. Because of this, they have a disclaimer which reads, quote, "By visiting the Clown Motel, you acknowledge that you may encounter interaction with spiritual and or unexplained phenomena and or other unexplainable, unusual, or paranormal activity or interactions which may include risk which may or may not be foreseeable. The Clown Motel would not be held liable for any bodily injury, damage to personal property, emotional distress, death, or other harm caused by the aforementioned." At a number 10 spot, we have the Skunk Ape. Known as Florida's own Bigfoot, the infamous skunk ape is said to inhabit their forests and swamps. The skunk ape is described as being bipedal, 5 to 7 feet tall with reddish brown hair all around its body. Sightings of this creature started all the way back in 1818 when local Florida newspapers spoke of a, quote, "man-sized monkey." This creature was sabotaging food stores and following fishermen along the shorelines. Then in 1942, another man reported a similar creature that was running at his vehicle while he was driving on an isolated road. He claimed the creature attacked his car for a little bit before returning back into the woods. And even on July 8, 2000, a YouTuber posted daytime footage of this creature. But you guys can be the judge from the footage. At a number 9 spot, we have Almas of Mongolia. Hidden away in the Altai Mountains of Western Mongolia is a creature known as the Almas. They are also considered the wild men of Mongolia, but they're not your typical humans. Although they're around 5 to 6 feet tall, they weigh as much as 600 pounds, and they're covered in complete thick fur that covers all of their skin. Those who have seen this creature up front have mentioned that it has the face of a Neanderthal, since it has a large forehead ridge and a really flat, wide nose. The sightings of this creature date back to the 1400s when a Bavarian prisoner claimed to see 2 of these Almas being presented as gifts to the Khan regime. Then in 1871, Russian explorer Nikolai Przewalski spotted one, claiming it to be a man-beast covered in thick black fur with enormous claws. Search parties have gone out to find if this creature really inhabited the mountains of Mongolia, but nothing significant has been found. However, some scientists believe it could be a relic population of Neanderthals who have been up in the mountains ever since, but who really knows other than the people who actually live in Mongolia. At number 8 spot, we have Barmanu of Pakistan. In northern Pakistan, shepherds living in the mountains have spoken about a creature that possesses both human and ape-like characteristics, giving it the title the Bigfoot of Pakistan. The Barmanu, which translates to big creature, is a bipedal primate that is known to abduct women and attempt to mate with them. Those who have encountered one have told about its horrifying screams, and they claim it sounds like a woman screamed if she was in extreme agony. Then in 1987, a Spanish scientist named Jordi Magraner arrived in Pakistan in search of this beast, and after a 19-month study, he was convinced that the beast was indeed out there, despite not getting any sort of solid evidence. I really don't know how that works. This led him to a 15-year search for the creature, but in the summer of 2002, he was found dead with a slit throat near the area. The case ended up going cold, and the mystery of this creature has prolonged ever since. At a number 7 spot, we have the Albatwitch. In the forests of Columbia, Pennsylvania is a 4-foot tall hairy creature known as the Albatwitch. Their name is just short for apple snitch, since they are known to be snatching apples left and right. People who walk near along the Susquehanna River claim to have these small creatures violently throw apples at them to push them away from their homes. Their homes are said to be in the treetops where they would only come down to gather apples. These hairy humanoids are often mistaken as Bigfoot children, since they are also reported around the area as well. and the sightings of these guys date all the way back to Native American mythology, where they used to depict these ape-like creatures on these war shields for protection. Despite the fact that these creatures are not likely to cause death, getting apples thrown at you aggressively doesn't sound too appealing either. At number 6 spot, we have the Chautauqua Monster. This is basically Mississippi's Bigfoot. So according to Pike County legend, a circus train was going through the old Illinois Central Railroad, and in a sudden twist of events, it derailed in the swamps near Chautauqua. Except this circus was not like any regular circus. It apparently had many strange critters and creatures on board. One of them being a half man and half ape hybrid, which appeared as a large hairy creature. The creature was very hostile and would attack any person or animal that got close to it. So a search party was quickly put together to recapture this beast, but they left empty-handed and the monster was never seen again. Many people who claim to see Bigfoot could be mistaken for this creature, but who knows? It could just be some 7-foot tall hairy guy minding his own business, but apparently if you go to the swamps near Chautauqua, you might catch a glimpse of these ape-like creatures. In the hump for our list, we have the Bukit Timah Monkey Man of Singapore. In the Bukit Timah region of Singapore, there is a forest-dwelling primate covered from head to toe in gray hair. Sightings of this creature are exceedingly rare, but they all seem to happen in the dead of night. The first account of the Bukit Timah Monkey Man was from an elder back in 1805. He recalled seeing an ape-like creature walking upright in the Bukit Timah region. But it wasn't until World War II when sightings of this creature skyrocketed. Many Japanese soldiers stationed in Singapore will report a gray primate-like creature standing almost up to 7 feet tall in the rainforest. Sightings of this creature come and go, but the good thing about it is that it doesn't seem to be aggressive or anything. Instead, it just kind of stands there, looking at you menacingly. At a number 4 spot, we have the Minerva Monster. Ohio has been having sightings of Bigfoot for the past 75 years, so at this point, if you're walking in the woods and see a giant ape, it wouldn't really be a surprise. But there was one case that kickstarted the whole Bigfoot hype all those years ago, and this is the case of the Minerva Monster. Sightings began in 1942 when locals reported an ape-like monster in Minerva, Ohio, and the concern for this monster only grew when a group of teenagers randomly disappeared in the forest near the area. The case of this monster was brought up to the public's attention when local resident Hal Caden told the story of encountering the Minerva Monster himself. It began in August of 1978 when Caden and his friends were sitting on the back porch of their home. When they're all sitting and talking, they began to hear strange noises near the chicken coop of their home. When they looked towards that direction, all they could find is 2 pairs of yellow eyes staring right at them. One of the friends decided to turn on their vehicle headlights, and they described a creature 7 feet tall with quote-unquote black and brown matted hair that covered its head and face. Number 3, Murfreesboro Mud Monster. In 1973, a young couple went for a romantic late-night drive in the town of Murfreesboro, Illinois. Only after a few minutes of driving, they decided to park near a river when all of a sudden, they heard a shrieking noise that could only be described as an eagle shrieking in a microphone. They soon scanned the area and heard another loud shriek. They looked in the direction it came from and noticed a bush that was shaking. Then they saw the mud monster and described it as a 7 feet tall, thick fur with a footprint closely resembling that of Bigfoot's. This monster kept terrorizing the town for weeks. Then out of the blue, it just disappeared, leaving the town in peace all of a sudden. At a number 2 spot with the Mogollon Monster. This beast is also known as Arizona's Bigfoot, and as you can see from the photos, you can probably see why. This monster is said to live on the Mogollon Rim, which is a steep cliff that runs 200 miles from eastern Arizona to New Mexico. The monster is also spotted within the Ponderosa pine forest as well. Those who have spotted it have said it stood 8 feet tall, covered in hair and fur, and walked upright. The same people who saw it also noted how territorial and how violent they can be. It's said that if you smell rotting fish, then the Mogollon Monster is nearby. So when that happens, be sure to dip straight out of the area. Similar to Bigfoot, there has been countless sightings and other forms of questionable evidence. All the way at a number 1 spot with the Flintville Monster. During the 1970s, a creature described to be like Bigfoot was terrorizing the people of Flintville, Tennessee. The monster would come out of forests and begin to slaughter people's livestock, abduct children, and even go after people's vehicles. The first sighting was in April 1976 when a woman decided to call the cops and report that a 7 to 8 feet tall hairy creature had come out of the forest, came straight to her car, pulled the radio antennas off, then jumped on top of the vehicle aggressively. This story would kickstart the legend of the Flintville monster, and many other people would come out to report their own experiences with this creature. Shortly after this, a mother claimed to see the beast run towards her son who was playing in the field. She came up just in time to get her children out of the way and run back home and call the cops. When the cops arrived, they didn't find the creature, but instead they found these 16-inch footprints and blood all around them. At number 10 spot, we have the Turpin family house. David and Louise Turpin's 13 children grew up in a highly controlled environment. It was so abusive that when the media raided their home and discovered what the kids endured all these years, they dubbed their home the House of Horrors. Their eldest sister Jennifer mentioned that the siblings were only allowed to eat once a day and bathe only once per year. They were reportedly left starving while the couple enjoyed eating junk food. The kids were beaten up upon the slightest attempt to steal food from their own parents, and the children were punished for the silliest things and even faced violent beatings from both their parents. Louise once pushed one of the siblings down the stairs for entering her bedroom while their father beat them with sticks and belts until they bled. The police found that the children were malnourished and some were even chained up. There were even lots of filth found inside of the rooms, and it was reported that the children were forced to live around such filth, including rotten food, spoiling garbage, and the sight and smell of feces. At a number 9 spot, we have the White House. Of course, the White House is on this list. However, I could only pick one point. William Harrison was the 9th president of the United States and holds the record for the least amount of time as president, just at 31 days. But his ghost has been there way longer than that. Passing away from pneumonia, William Harrison would also be the first person who died inside of the White House. Not the greatest achievement, I guess. Now witnesses report unexplained noises coming from the attic, specifically over the area of Yellow Oval Room, which has now been connected to Harrison's spirit. Now there is a complete third floor that has replaced the attic. However, workers still report seeing Harrison roaming the halls and his own room. His apparition appears to take on a blue glow with him coughing profusely due to his pneumonia. Although no harm has been done by his ghost, the third floor seems to be avoided as much as possible for those who work at the White House. At number 8 spot, we have the Heyman House. Located in Sutton, Braxton County, West Virginia, is the Heyman House. Built in 1894, the William Heyman House is a very historic place in the state with its rich interior craftsmanship and rare decorative materials. However, going through more recent owners and visitors, the locals now claim that there are more than a few spirits living inside of the home. During the time Heyman lived at the house, he suffered the passing of his 8-year-old granddaughter and another one of his family members who died from strangulation. Visitors claim that the mirror in the foyer is guarded by a gray-haired woman, while the second floor is haunted by a woman in white. At our number 7 spot, we're the Ferry State Plantation Home. With 11 spirits calling the Ferry State Plantation House their home, Haunted House seems like a fair title for this site. Now used as a museum and educational center, the house also offers Halloween tours called the Stroll of Lost Souls, and it's also a regular site for ghost hunters and paranormal activity groups. The story goes that this house was used originally as a school, tavern, and then eventually a mansion. Once the mansion burned down in 1828, it was reconstructed by abused and mistreated slaves. The house's many spirits included the woman in white who fell down from the stairs and the slave named Sally Walk, who is said to still be grieving for her late fiance. But the most famous one here is Grace Sherwood, who is named the Witch of Pungo. She was in fact the last person convicted of witchcraft in Virginia, having to spend 7 years in jail and later being released. But when she passed away, reports say that her body disappeared without a trace, leaving many to believe she truly was a witch. At number 6 spot, we have the Thawi-Watana Deserted House. This is a supposed cursed house where everyone who has entered the house would be met with a terrible fate. In the Thawi-Watana district of Bangkok, rumor has it that in 2015, a group of early teenagers entered the home. They were just out partying, so they entered the home drunk on alcohol and high on other narcotics. The reason they entered the home was because many locals claimed that the house was indeed haunted. So the boys decided to go check on it for themselves. This ended up being a very terrible decision later on. It said that whoever enters the house will have one of the home spirits attached to them. It wasn't until 3 months after when 2 of the boys were fatally wounded in a motorcycle accident, and then a year later, a third boy also got into another fatal accident. Then in the next year, 2 more of the boys lost their lives in a house fire. The odd thing about these deaths was that the witnesses claimed that they saw a woman in white sitting on the backs of the motorcycles before their accidents, and also they saw the woman in white at the house before the fire. In the hump of our list, we have House of Horrors. The only horror movie to win Best Picture Oscar, Silence of the Lambs, made Hannibal the Cannibal Lecter a chilling household name, while putting Thomas Harris's bestseller and the true crime cases that inspired it into the national spotlight. I know Hannibal was a different type of beast, but he was inspired by a real-life serial killer named Gary Hednick. He was probably the furthest from being good, as he was Philadelphia's most notorious criminal. He was infamous for his house of horrors, where he would do unimaginable things to 6 different women that I can't even mention in this video. Even in the movie, Hannibal asks Starling, quote, "What does he do? This man you seek," in which she replies, "He attacks women." They could have easily been talking about Gary Hednick in this scene, especially since he inspired Buffalo Bill as well. Number 4, the Villisca Axe Murder Home. On June 10th, 1912, Josiah and Sarah Moore were bludgeoned till they ended up passing away inside of their home in Villisca, Iowa. Their 4 children and 2 friends who were spending the night also passed away, and to this day, the crime remains unsolved. Their home is considered to be one of the most haunted houses in the country, and guests are drawn to it still. People even pay $400 to stay just one night in this home, and tours have been cut short by children's noises, falling lamps, moving ladders, and even flying objects. And even in 2014, a paranormal investigator stabbed himself after spending a night at this home. Number 3, the house on Ridge Avenue. In the north side of Pittsburgh lies where it's also known as the house the devil built. The house is also 1129 Ridge Avenue and known as the Conglier House. It was built in 1860s by Charles Conglier, who lived in the house with his wife Lyda and their maid Essie. The maid and Charles would be having a secret affair, and soon after, the wife overheard what was happening, so she collected a knife and a meat cleaver and proceeded to murder the two. She would be found later humming lullabies as she rocked on her chair. Then in 1900, Dr. Ada Brunreicher purchased the home. One day, the neighbors heard a woman screaming in the house and called the police. Once the cops arrived, the doctor was nowhere to be found, but instead there was only the body of the woman with no head. Then a single mother and her 5 children lived there in the 1920s, until a nearby natural gas tank exploded and killed the mother, causing the 5 children to be left abandoned. Although the tale is said to be fabricated, many of the stories about this house are indeed true. Number 2, Tulsa's Hex House. Located on 10th East 21st Street in Oklahoma, is the remnants of a home that was once a horror house. The owner of the home during the 1940s was a 45-year-old woman named Carolyn Smith. However, she wouldn't be the only resident in this home, as she would keep 2 other women there as quote-unquote slaves. These 2 women were named Virginia Evans and Willetta Horner, who were 30 and 31 years old at the time. They claimed that they're being hexed by Corlin and were basically forced to give their paychecks directly to her, with their big reward coming when they arrived in the gates of heaven. Basically, Corlin would keep these 2 women in her basement and just live off their checks. But that wasn't all. She would also receive request aid from one of her slaves' parents, in which she received a total of $20,000 for nursing care. After the 2 women were suspected of missing, a police investigation eventually found them in prison in this home, living in the worst condition, and this was during a span of 7 years. Corlin would only get subjected to 1 year in prison, and the house was demolished, with a parking lot built on top of it. However, some believe that the basement is still underneath this parking lot. At a number 1 spot, we have the Amityville House. 30 miles outside of New York City, nestled in the Long Island town of Amityville, stands a house forever linked to the Amityville horror phenomenon. On November 13, 1974, the estate was the scene of a horrible event. Using a .35 Marlin rifle, 23-year-old Ronald Defoe took the lives of his entire family while they were asleep, which included his parents and 4 siblings. 13 months later, the Lutz family purchased the home at a drastically reduced price of $80,000. But only lasted 28 days before leaving it. Their spine-tingling tales of paranormal activity are what propelled the legend of the Amityville horror, and spawned a torrent of books, documentaries, and even films. George was said to wake up at 3:15 a.m. every morning, which is around the same time Ron carried out his murders. The Lutz family claimed many things happening in the home, like the smell of strange odors, see green slime oozing out of the walls and keyholes, and experience cold spots in certain areas of the home. When a priest came to bless the house, he allegedly heard a voice scream, quote, "Get out." He told the Lutzes to never sleep in that particular room in the house ever again, and ever since, this legend has carried on. At number 10 spot, we have Akershus Fortress. Located in Oslo, Norway, is a 700-year-old medieval castle that has stood strong and secured the city from foreign invaders. However, just because it managed to keep dangers away, doesn't mean that there weren't a whole lot of issues within. Although the fortress acted as a military base and temporary office for the Prime Minister, for many years it served as a prison. There was even a section section known as the slavery because here prisoners could be rented out for work in the city. And to make matters worse, not only did the prisoners go through slavery, but their sentences involved hard labor, with the prison notorious for their use of chains and prisoner isolation techniques. Eventually the place closed down in 1950, but there are some who say that the spirits of former prisoners are still locked away here. Whispers and scratching can be heard along the hallways, and guards have reported weird sensations such as like being pushed by someone who wasn't there. At a number 9 spot, we have Shrewsbury Prison. The Shrewsbury Prison in Shropshire is one of the oldest prisons in the UK, and in addition to its dark history, it was given that this jail is one of the most haunted one in the UK as well. This prison opened all the way back in 1793 and remained open until 2013, meaning 2 centuries of people went through this place. During the Victorian period, large audience would assemble to see public executions, some of which were people who had just been given the death penalty for crimes like stealing bread. Apart from that, this prison went through many public executions, torturing, and many people taking their own lives. Visitors to the prison claim that a shadow man lurks in the prison's A wing. It's said that he's a former police officer, since he is known to scare people away from that wing. At a number 8 spot, we have Lake County Jail. Located in Crown Point, Indiana, is the infamous Lake County Jail. In 1878, the building started off as just the sheriff's house, but eventually in the early 1900s, it went through expansions to create an additional jailhouse right beside of it. It didn't take long before the jail took in some of America's most notorious criminals. The most famous criminal that was kept at this jail was American gangster John Dillinger. Before, many believed that the prison was inescapable, but on March 3rd, 1934, John proved everyone wrong. He supposedly crafted a firearm made out of wood and convinced a jail employee to lock up 14 jailers, all while using this makeshift gun. Then he, alongside 3 other people, escaped using a stolen cop car. However, only a few months later, John was found and executed by FBI agents. Ever since, the jail has been showcasing paranormal activity, with blame towards John. Many claim to see his spirit walking around the building as if he's still reliving his days of escaping, but others have claimed that he has openly grabbed them, and before the person could react, his spirit just disappears. At our number 7 spot, we have Security Prison 21. In the 1970s, this former high school was converted into the notorious S21 prison by the Khmer regime, where an estimated 20,000 prisoners were executed. Yes, I said 20,000. Nowadays, the souls of the victims who were detained, starved, tortured, and executed are said to be roaming the S21 hall, which is now named the Tool Slang Genocide Museum. Many unusual incidents have been reported here, including the guards who hear moaning and chains rattling in the middle of the night. Today, the school or prison has been transformed into a museum where the ghosts of the deceased are still said to haunt it. Of the 20,000 prisoners that experienced the horrors of this place, only approximately 6 to 12 are rumored to have survived the genocide. The museum employees even leave food out for the ghosts during their lunch breaks. They say that if they don't leave an offering, they can't enjoy their lunches in peace due to loud noises and other ghostly activities. At our number 6 spot, we have Old Charleston Jail. In Charleston, South Carolina, the Old Charleston Jail dates back to 1802 and hasn't changed much over the years. Notable prisoners of this jail include Denmark Vesey, who was arrested for planning a slave uprising, and Lavinia Fisher, the country's first female serial killer. Pirates and Union soldiers were also held captive here, and many locals believe the spirits and souls of the incarcerated continue to reside behind these bars. The first sightings came when the jail was undergoing renovations back in 2000. This is when the prison was sealed off for months to avoid lead paint contamination, but when they returned back inside, they discovered many human hand and footprints all over the place. If you decide to visit the prison, the ghosts here are very touchy, and chances are you'll be tugged by an unseeable force.
Every time I walked in this room, we give him. What was that? Why do you remain in this jail?
In the hump of our list, we have the Wyoming Territorial Prison. The Wyoming Territorial Prison in the city of Laramie opened its doors in 1873, and over its time of being active, it would have many problems with overcrowding, causing many prisoners to be bunched together in already terrible living conditions. This prison is not like the other typical haunted prisons. It didn't have horrific executions, nor did it have riots or mistreatment. Instead, this prison is haunted due to a select few spirits that chose to stick around here for whatever reason. The spirit is believed to be that of Julius Greenwelch, who was an inmate in the 1890s. He was sent there because he murdered his wife after finding her at his favorite brothel. During his days at the prison, he became so notorious for his talent in cigar rolling that he was even allowed to set up a cigar making business while behind bars. However, in a few years, he would pass away from a heart attack, causing his business to never grow the way he envisioned. Ever since, the prison has parts of it that smell of cigar smoke, with the guards and locals claiming the smell is the spirit of Julius. At number 4 spot, we have the Eastern State Penitentiary. Once the world's most expensive prison, from 1829, this Philadelphia facility boasted grand architecture, modern luxuries, and notorious inmates, including Al Capone. One of the first penitentiaries ever built, it combined impressive design and strict discipline to inspire regret and reform in the hearts of convicts. Since its closure in 1971, the complex has crumbled into the mass of deteriorating cell blocks, which are now recognized as a National Historic Landmark. Eastern State Penitentiary is now open to visitors year-round, and if you decide to visit here, there are some ghostly things that you might encounter. At number 3 spot, we have the Tennessee State Prison. Built in 1898, this castle-looking prison was open for almost an entire century, and during its time, it housed many of America's most notorious criminals. It was a maximum security facility, but it was also notorious for their poor living conditions and riots. For example, in 1902, a group of 17 prisoners would break out of their cells and start a riot within the jail, with one of the prisoners being murdered and 2 of the 17 prisoners actually escaping the prison. Then in 1939, another jailbreak occurred, with the prisoner setting fire to some areas of the prison, including the dining room, which ended up killing a few more workers and other prisoners. Then during 1975 to 1985, there were countless other riots and jailbreaks within the prison. People who have previously visited the old Tennessee State Prison have described what they think to be the sounds of cell bars clanking, spine-chilling cries, and footsteps have seemed to echo throughout the halls, which makes it one of the spookiest sights in all of Tennessee. At number 2 spot, with the Napier Prison. Located in Napier Hill, New Zealand, is the Napier Prison. Built in 1862, this prison lasted over 130 years until it eventually closed down in 1993. This prison was once used as an orphanage and then a psychiatric hospital, so it's really no surprise that this place is considered one of the most haunted places in all of New Zealand. During the time it was active, this place was the last place many people saw in their lives because many death sentences were done inside of the prison. The most notorious of the death sentences was the one given to Roland Edwards. He was a mass murderer who was sentenced to death in the gallows, but ever since, he is said to haunt the prison, with a special appearance on the anniversary of his death. At number 1 spot, with the Wyoming Frontier Prison. Located in Rawlins, Wyoming, the Wyoming Frontier Prison has a reputation of being one of the toughest prisons in the Wild West. Opened in 1901, it housed some of the most violent inmates, featured a dungeon, botched executions, and was known for rampant violence. Now a museum, employees and visitors alike have reported ghostly encounters. There have been apparitions spotted in the cell blocks and reports of a malevolent spirit in the dungeon who has threatened visitors. The prison is so notorious that it was featured on the episode of Travel Channel's Ghost Adventures, and here ghost hunters have captured orbs on cameras which are said to be spirits. The museum offers haunted Halloween night tours if you want a ghostly encounter of your own.